Hi everyone, it's Mrs. Bebo. In this video, we're going to take a look at solving percent problems, and what this means is we're given a problem in which we have to solve for the percent, the part, or the whole. So this video I will break down into 3 parts. We'll have a video 1 where we'll talk about the different ways you can solve a percent problem, and then we'll specifically look at problems that involve finding the percent. And then video 2, we'll talk about finding the part, and then the last video of the series we'll talk about finding the whole when given these percent problems. So with that being said, our main goal with this lesson is how do you solve a percent problem using a proportion or an equation. Those are going to be our 2 methods to being able to solve these problems. And there's other ways too, but these are definitely the most organized way of solving these questions. So we're going to start by looking at the percent proportion. So you can represent the phrase A is P% of W with the proportion, and what this proportion looks like, it is A over W equals P over 100. So remember, a proportion is an equation that states that 2 ratios are equivalent. In this proportion, A is representing the part of the whole, which is W, and then P is our percentage, which P, our percents, right, are always going to be out of 100. So that's why we write it as P over 100, right? That's our percent. So in percent problems, the word of is typically followed by the whole. So when we go through these examples, you'll note that I'll try to point out some of these key words. Usually if it says of something, that is typically the whole. So 3 out of 4 is 75%. So 3 would be the part. 4 is going to be what it's out of, so that's the whole, and then 75% is obviously our percentage there because it has the percent sign. So if I were to just quickly write it as a proportion, we would say 3 out of 4, that's the same as 75 out of 100, which we know to be true because 75 hundredths is the same as the fraction 3/4. So percent proportion, really great way of setting up these percent problems. And then to solve a proportion, we would use cross products. So again, a really nice strategy for solving these percent problems. If we take a look at the other strategy we can do, that is the percent equation. And again, we can represent the phrase A is P% of W with the equation, and our equation is going to be in the form A equals P multiplied by W, where A is, again, the part. So the nice thing between the proportion and the equation, the variables mean the same thing. So A is going to be the part. W is going to be the whole, what it's out of. And then the percent, this is the part that we have to be careful with. The percent is written in fraction or decimal form. So if we have 75%, we want to make sure we write it as 75 hundredths, 0.75, or as a fraction, 3 over 4, or even 75 over 100, which isn't simplified, so it would definitely be better to use 3/4 or the decimal form, which is most often what you'll see when we use the equation. So we're going to jump into examples where we're going to find the percent. I'm going to solve these a couple of methods, right? So I'm going to do the first 2 using the percent proportion, and then questions 3 and 4 I'll solve using the percent equation. And in this set of problems, we're going to be finding the percent. So what percent of 20 is 8? What percent of 25 is 12? So what percent? That's what we're trying to find. So if we take a look at this first question, I always tell my students, underline things, right? Underline those key words. So I see what percent, that means I'm trying to find the percent, right? Obviously it says it at the top, but if we didn't know that, this is our percent. We don't know what that is. Of 20, it's out of 20, so that's going to be my whole. And then is 8, that's my part. So again, looking for those key words. Either it's going to say what percent, or it's going to have a percent sign that indicates it's your percentage that you're trying to find. Of 20, what is it out of? That's going to be the whole. And then is a certain portion of it, that's going to be the part. So when I set up my proportion on this one, we're going to have 8 out of 20. So again, A out of W equals the percent out of 100. You're always going to have one unknown, and the percent is always going to be over 100, which happens to be our unknown in this case. So now we're going to do our cross products to solve. We're going to have 8 times 100 20 times P. 20 times P is just 20P. 8 times 100 would be 800. And then you have one more step to solve. We're going to divide both sides by 20. And then we're going to figure out that 800 divided by 20 is going to be 40. So P equals 40. And then we are going to add our label, percent. So with this problem, we are going to have a label because we are finding the percent. All right, so let's take a look at number 2, where we're going to do the same strategy. This problem is worded a little bit differently. It says 20 is what percent of 52? So again, find the percent part first. So this one says what percent? So we're trying to find that percentage. That's my variable P. Of is the next thing that I look for. So what is it out of? In this case, it's out of 52. So that's going to be our whole. And then that would mean by process of elimination that 20 is the part. So I'm going to once again set up a proportion to solve. So we're going to have 20 out of 52, again, A out of W, right, the part out of the whole, is equal to what percent, and that's always out of 100. We're going to do our cross product, so we're going to do 20 times 100 and 52 times P. So we're going to have 52P equals 20 times 100 would be 2,000. And then the last step to solve this one-step equation that we're left with is to divide both sides by 52. And then what's going to happen here, we're going to have 2,000 divided by 52. And we end up with a approximate answer, because 2,000 divided by 52 is going to be about 38. And we're going to round it to a half, so 46 hundredths. So when you do type in your calculator, you get 38.4615. We don't need all of those, and typically a problem will tell you to round to the nearest tenth, but always double check those instructions. Obviously in here it doesn't say what to round to, so we're going to round this to about 38.5%. And I'm going to make my squiggly equal sign a little bit more clear. And that is just saying it's approximately equal to 38.5%. It's not exact, but it's an approximation. That's what that squiggly equal sign represents. Now, what happens if we're going to use the equation? So with the equation, remember it's A equals P times W. And again, I think it's important just to take the time to, again, identify what each part of your problem is. So when I look at this problem, what percent of 25 is 12? What percent? That's my percentage. Of 25, that's what it's out of. And then is 12, that's the part. So again, look for those key words. What is it out of? It doesn't have a percent sign, or does it say what percent? And then whatever's left is going to be the part. So with this question, we're going to set it up so that it says 12 out of 25, right? The part out of the whole. Oh, excuse me. Setting up a proportion. We don't need to set up a proportion. We're going to set it up using an equation so we can see something different. So A equals P times W, so 12 equals the percent times, in this case, 25. So that's how I'm going to set up my equation. 12 equals P times 25. To solve this, if you wanted to rewrite this, this is the same thing as 12 equals 25P. You don't have to rewrite it so that the constant is in front of P, right? As long as you know that it's multiplication, and the way to solve that problem would be to divide, then you're going to be all set. But we're going to divide both sides by 25. And so when we do 12 divided by 25, we're going to end up with an answer of 48 hundredths for P. Now, this isn't my exact percent though, right? Because remember, when you use the equation, your percentage is entered in as a decimal. So we have to change this into a percentage by technically multiplying by 100. Otherwise, the trick is just to move your decimal place to the right 2 spots. And then our percentage, our final answer, would actually be 48%, because again, what we found was actually the decimal form. All right, one more example here where we're going to use the equation. Try to put that in my mind again. So 72 is what percent of 45? Again, as I'm looking through this, we can identify the percent pretty quick. It's what we're trying to find. Of 45, that's going to be the whole because it's out of that amount. And then 72 is going to be the part. So A. So when I set up my equation, A equals P times W, it's going to say 72 equals our percent times the whole, 45. And then to solve this, we're just going to divide both sides by what our variable is being multiplied by. So we're going to divide both sides by 45. And so now we're going to do 72 divided by 45. And we get an answer of 1.6, or 1 6/10 for P. Now remember, this is the decimal form of the percent, so we do have to go back and rewrite this as its true percentage. The math behind that, again, is that you would multiply this by 100. Otherwise, just move your decimal place to the right 2 spots. And so my final answer on this one would be 160%. So that's it for examples where we're going to find the percent. Check out the next 2 videos for when we have to find the part or the whole.